Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now, let's start with the first story. It's called Engineer Wouldn't Listen. I was a swing expediter, scheduler and shop assistant. I didn't run the machines. I just helped get done what needed to be done on our shift. We had an old school machinist come in at the start of shift and explain the blueprint was wrong. And if he followed the attached manufacturing procedure, it was gonna result in a bad part. He showed me the issue and I agreed right away. Said I'd catch the engineer before shift the next day. So I called up the engineer, but he insists, it's right, just do it. I called him again the next day with the same result. I moved it up a level and he stormed into our office, raging on the third day. I try and show him the drawing and procedure, but he insists it's correct. He tells me I have no idea what we are doing in our shop. Just follow the procedure as it's written. I had logged all of the calls etc. and asked if he would put that in writing, and he does. I went to the same machinist and told him the issue. It's a 16-hour job. He sits and reads for 2 days, and then hands the paperwork, but no part, into quality control. They ask what's going on, where's the part? I came by and explained that according to both the drawing and procedure, the machinist was to machine a 12-inch part down to just over 13 inches shorter than it started at. Thus the produced product? Nothing. They asked us why we did this, so I showed them the records I had. They wrote it up as a procedure issue. 2 days later, the same engineer storms in, but brought his boss, the one I initially went to when I got no response, and starts accusing me of sabotaging his part. I calmly show both of them everything, explained that we knew it was an issue and tried to fix it, but we were overridden. The boss looks at the engineer and says, "Why aren't you listening to people that are trying to help?" And the engineer replies, "They didn't go to college to become engineers. They don't know what they are talking about." And with that, he walked out. I looked at the boss and he said, "We will get you a revised procedure and drawing. I assume you still actually have the original stock to make it from?" I laughed and told him I wasn't stupid. Of course I do. That engineer was no longer with the firm a couple weeks later. The next story is called Permanent Structure. I grew up in an okay town that has since become a bit snobbier. I was driving down my old street last year and I saw my old neighbor, Andrea, sitting on her front porch. So I stopped in to say hi. Turning into the driveway, I noticed a regulation-sized soccer goal in her next-door neighbor's small front yard, which is very out of sync with the rest of the neighborhood. It made me laugh a little. After a quick catch-up, I learned a couple of things. She's the last of my old neighbors who still lives on the street, and the neighborhood has become very keeping up with the Jones, with the exception of her next-door neighbor. I asked her about the soccer goal. The neighbor has a young daughter who loves soccer. She would spend hours in the front yard, kicking goals into a small goal anchored in the front yard with 10 spikes. Apparently another neighbor, they don't know who, but they suspect the people directly across the street, complained to the township because of the semi-permanent structure in the front yard. The neighbor got upset. Obviously it was basically a toy in the front yard. Cops came to their house. They got a warning. Then they thought it would be okay, as long as they took it down when they weren't home. But no, cops were called again, and they were fined while the daughter was using it. The fine said something about having a semi-permanent, because of the 10 stakes structure. They weren't allowed to have a semi-permanent structure, but they could have a permanent structure. So they went, got a permit from the township, dug the holes, filled it with concrete, and built a regulation-sized goal, and hung the permit on one of the poles. Now the mystery neighbor has to look at the goal every day. The third story is called Engineer Knows Best. When I was in the Boy Scouts, I was the troop quartermaster for a while. We needed a place to store and organize our camping gear, tents, Dutch ovens, etc. One of the guy's dads was an engineer and volunteered to supervise building some shelving for the small closet we had to store the gear in. He produced very professional blueprints. Yes, for simple shelves. I was only 13 or 14 at the time, but my dad was a self-employed carpenter and took me along on jobs when not in school as his helper. So I knew how to read blueprints and a bit about building shelves from wood. I took one look at the plans and saw a very big problem and tried to point out his mistake, which was my mistake. To say he was highly put out by being corrected by a kid was an understatement. So I shut up and backed off. His plan to get the shelf into the small closet, build it in 2 halves and put each half in and then attach them together. But he had no support under the split down the middle of each shelf. We got it built, installed, and he was quite proud of himself. See, it's fine. Okay, says me, let's get all the gear stowed. First stand, about 10 pounds, went up on the top shelf, in the middle, right at the split, and it went right through that shelf and all the other shelves, all the way to the floor. An entire Saturday wasted. He stood there dumbfounded and speechless. I looked at him and said, it needs supports under the shelves that aren't cut in the middle. The next week I came to the troop meeting and looked in the closet. Supports installed, gear arranged. He never spoke of it again. The last story is called Making the Shopping List. Lately, my dad and older brother have been trying to push the job of making the shopping list onto me. Of course, because I don't know how much they need. Since I'm the least food interested person in the house, I need someone to help me with making the list. As dad had gone to bed, my brother helped me. Well, he helped me. He would sit there and tell me which item I needed to check, one at a time, and give me a vague or stupid answer as to how much we needed of something. For example, we needed 35 tubs of mint ice cream, or the amount of beer we needed was a fridge. And I was getting annoyed, especially because he was trying to watch a movie at the time and kept pausing and unpausing it between items. So I had to deal with him always telling me to shut up and wait for the end of the scene or a good time to pause, which took several minutes per item for a full shopping list for 3 people and a cat. It was like 11:45 PM when we started doing this, and this is after he had dragged his feet on helping me for 3 days. Eventually I got sick of it and started writing exactly what he said when it came to his foodstuffs. So we needed an amount of veggie burgers, just gas of tuna, shut up, this is a good bit of dark cooking chocolate, and look at this silly moggy of butternut squash, and so on. By the time we were done, it was past 2 AM and I was knackered, stressed, and satisfied with my work. I took the list upstairs to my dad, left it on his bedside table with a sticky note that said, if anything looks wrong, just don't get it. In the morning, Dad went shopping. He came back with everything I eat and he eats. But my brother was missing about 85% of his food items. When my brother asked what happened, my dad said that he couldn't tell whether we needed to get some things because the amounts of those things seemed unusual or costly, and felt that it was safer if he didn't buy those things. It turns out Dad had been kept awake by my brother's movie for 2.5 hours last night and was as sick to the back teeth with it as I was. My brother had to walk up to the local shop and buy as many of his things as he could from there. They didn't have everything out of his own money. He even had to make 2 trips because he couldn't carry everything the first time. It's a mile walk there, meaning he had to walk 4 miles in total to buy his food out of his pocket. Dad wouldn't drive him because he had a long run to do, and I wasn't going to help either. I was too busy eating my Pringles that I forgot to put on the list. I'm still going to have to help make the list in future, but when I do, something tells me my 27-year-old brother will help properly next time. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.